today we're going to review the game Monument Valley. So a couple of episodes ago, we interviewed ustwo Games, the creators of Monument Valley. And in that episode, we kind of got some perspective on, what it was like building the game and, what some of their goals were with creating it. And in the intervening time, the game has been released. So it's out now on the iOS App Store. And so we played the game, and now we're here to review it. So if you aren't familiar with the basic concept, the idea is that it's a series of puzzles, and you direct this character, this princess, Princess Ida, through these puzzles, and they're full of impossible geometry. So like Penrose triangles and other sorts of objects that can't exist in real life. And so she navigates through these worlds, and then and as a result, you sort of move up between different levels and explore a larger story. So given that, what did we think, Scott?
It's great. It's tons of fun. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's a very immersive experience. So you feel like you're in this world. The aesthetic is really interesting because it's sort of a combination of kind of like some elements of like Super Mario World kind of colors and that sort of general feeling, but you mix in a little bit of like Journey or maybe even like Flower, one of that game company games, and then add a little bit of Fez. Simmer for 20 minutes. It's fantastic. It's gorgeous. The sound design is great. The art is great. It's really fun. It's for somebody who's kind of worried about, I'm not really a puzzle game person, I don't think you need to worry about that. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, there's no significant challenge. The last level's a little bit more challenging, but I would recommend this basically to everybody. I mean, I think even action game people would get something out of it. It's as a change of pace. It's fantastic. I love it.
Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's really awesome. And like you said, the puzzles aren't very hardcore. There's definitely segments of the game where it doesn't feel like you're puzzling things at all. You're mostly just sort of clicking along to get to the next thing. But you're ever bored. You want to see what this world is like, and you want to just soak in sort of the artwork and the environment that it creates. And it's all really cool. I did notice earlier this morning, I was on the App Store just kind of goofing around. I looked at the charts. This is the number one paid app on the App Store right now. They had a really, really solid release. So, and it's justified. So it's a good game. So yeah, I would recommend it.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's beautiful. The sound design is fantastic. I mean, you can just look at pretty much every level, and you could like print it out and hang it on a wall. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just amazing. I feel like in some ways I appreciated it more than I actually like enjoyed playing it. It felt repetitive after a while. And it, like I was sort of it was beautiful, and I kind of enjoyed looking at it. But there are some elements of story that kind of sort of are threaded through the whole game, and there's some individual moments that are very like moving that we can talk about sort of after the spoilers break. Mm-hmm. But they're just so far and in between, and
really tenuous. They don't seem 100% connected to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wish there was more of that. Like I played for like an hour, and I kind of got bored. Like I wanted something more. Like I wasn't like, what's gonna happen next? It's like, it's like Angry Birds. Like, you need to play for a little while. And I mean, it's much more sophisticated than Angry Birds. But I didn't have this feeling that like I wanted to like get to the like.
Although in fairness, there are birds that are angry.
There are a lot of Angry Birds in this game.
Wow.
So I mean, I kind of wish there was something more, but I did enjoy playing it, and it is it's a masterpiece for what they're actually trying to accomplish in this game. It's beautiful and very it's very, I don't know what the right word for it is, like ethereal. Like this sort of
yeah.
So I enjoyed it.
I agree that the plot is a little bit thin, and I wish that it had maybe been beefed up just a little bit, so it feels like there's a little bit more that you're sort of discovering, because I feel like it kind of sets it up a little bit where you're going to like reveal some like thing where it's like, this is why this valley is full of impossible geometry, or this is why Princess Ida is there, or whatever. And I don't know, maybe it was a spoiler, but I feel like you don't ever really get those answers, and that's okay. I mean, it doesn't diminish the game, but it would have been cool if maybe that had been like filled out a little bit more to feel like you did maybe get some of those answers. I don't know. But,
yeah, I feel like I was teased. It's like, there's all there's little sort of interludes throughout the game where you learn bits more of this sort of backstory, but it was never. In some ways, it sort of felt more like grandiose that it really was. Like, there's this like wise old character that you meet, and she says all these things, and then it was sort of empty.
A little bit,
yeah.
But it's still fun. I mean,
it's funny. So when we played, I guess maybe Device 6 is a good example. You guys have talked about how when you don't have as many visuals, your mind gets to fill in the gaps for where the visuals would be, and
totally.
often that's a better picture than whatever would actually be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I kind of felt that about the story because it was so sparse that, particularly at the end, which we should talk about, I filled in the gaps with my own idea of what the story meant and like what was actually trying to be communicated, so that there's this surface level story. And for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm pulling different things of, different things I've read or watched or whatever, and kind of filling them into that place. I agree it could be probably turned up just a tad, just a little bit more concrete, but I actually appreciated overall that it wasn't like spelling it out like this is exactly what happened, and like not even to, I don't think I'd even want it to the degree that Journey does it, where they actually show you, here's what happened. As a point of contrast, I guess I like the fact that it left that open to interpretation.
Yeah. I buy that argument, but I still kind of wish it had been.
I get that. More. I get that. Yeah. The other thing is that I think it's an interesting example of, a lot of times I think game developers are trying to choose between having something that's very artsy and maybe a little bit more skewed towards sort of a niche market, or having commercial success by making something that's very broad. So Angry Birds is the canonical example. But I think this is a really interesting intersection of the two, because anybody, you can be playing this at 5, 6, 7 years old. You could also be playing this at 70 years old and probably have a very, obviously you have a different interpretation of what's going on, but that entire audience can appreciate this. And it's not as a result of sort of like making it like less of a piece of art,
Yeah, no, that's true. And like the audience is even bigger than you might even think. For example, my cat
cats, I know.
loves this game. What
did you think about the plot?
Crows? It's the crows, like, they squawk when you tap on them.
Love
so
the crows.
My cat Hannah, she figured out this. And so she started batting at the crows, which is really unfortunate. I was trying to play the game, like normally. So I'm trying to like send Ida this direction, and then she's batting at the crows, and Ida's heading for the crows, which is not a good thing for Ida to be doing, because Ida does not get along with the crows very well.
So Ustwo Games, we should let them know that you have a future market in cat games.
Yep.
Of which, shockingly, there is kind of a market.
Yes.
That's the really weird part. Yeah. That's funny.
Interesting. What was your cat's review on the game? More crows?
Yes, yeah. I think she was a little disappointed. Not all the levels have crows, and so it wasn't like full 2 paws up, but even so,
did you see me shaking my head? Video. It's worth watching the video for you just to see me shaking my head. Paws up. So I think
the approachability though is totally part of its success. Yeah, is that you don't have to be a hardcore gamer.
Yeah. And I actually, maybe even more to that point, I like the fact that it really embraces the medium without dumbing it down. So there's games on the App Store that are basically ports from other systems, and they're like, oh, well, we'll stick some buttons on the screen where you used to have like a controller.
Yeah.
And it just, lets all that go. This is not that kind of game. And it basically says, hey, here's a picture that you can play with. I really appreciate it, because that's a hard line to walk, to try to, differentiate between, well, I want something that's meaningful and like is actually, artful, but also I want anybody basically to be able to play it, so that, not just so it's accessible, but so it can have commercial success. It's very difficult to get that. And I think they did it.
And I'm also impressed at just how far they're able to go with this conceit. The whole impossible geometry conceit. Like, I was like, oh, there's the Penrose triangle, and they, and oh, there's this other clever thing they did, and like, oh, now if you rotate, the things align, and then, but they keep going, and creating more and more clever ways to exploit this sort of this impossible world.
Yeah.
And I was surprised with that. I figured I'd get, I would start seeing a lot of repetition in the levels, and there's a lot less than I expected. Yeah. So that was cool. So I guess overall, we like it.
Yeah.
Recommend
absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, I think anyone should play it. It's only $4 on the App Store. Yeah. So
yeah. Although some people consider that splurging.
Yes.
Man.
$4 well spent. So we're gonna cut to doing some spoilers here in just a moment. If you haven't played the game, please go out and play it. It's available on iPhone and iPad, and in a few weeks, I believe, and on Android as well.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. And if you have any feedback, you can send that to us at feedback@lowearthorbit.fm. You can find us on Twitter at lowearthshow, And as always, our show notes are available on our website, lowearthorbit.fm.
And we have a YouTube page, also youtube.com/lowearthshow. So
Yes.
we're putting videos there somewhat regularly. We'll see how it goes. But if a bunch of people check out the videos and like them and subscribe, we'll put more up.
All right, cool. So on to the spoilers.
I'm actually curious what each of our favorite levels were, if you remember. Because for me, the puzzle box level, loved
That was really cool.
I loved
I really
that
liked
level.
that too.
Everything about that level, because it was like, you open up this, first off, it's non-Euclidean geometry or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
So you're like popping it up and it's like something different each time you pop up one of the corners.
Like depending on which end of the box you
Yes.
open, you see a different scene inside.
Awesome. And I was
Very
like,
cool.
I was in it at that point, but then it just keeps like transforming, like growing in more crazy ways. And then the thing that sold me was the fish tank.
Yes. Yeah. That was
I
cool.
love, there's some weird part of me that loves like fish tanks without any actual glass around them.
Wait, this is a thing?
That's what I was gonna say. How many times have you seen that?
Quite often.
Really?
Surprising.
Yeah.
I can't cite another one right now, but it shows up in games fairly often.
Really?
Oh, okay. Like so not in reality. Like there's somehow
no.
So,
Gravity controlled fish
So he's
tanks.
just suddenly into fish tanks. He's like, you can get fish tanks without glass. I'm getting pissed, man.
I can just see like the 18 attempts in. My floor just keeps getting wet. This isn't going anywhere.
What am I doing wrong?
So the puzzle, there's a lot of great moments in the game, and particularly near the end. But like for me personally, the thing that was attached to my favorite things about a game, the puzzle box level, I loved, especially at the end, and it closes all back up. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. Did you guys have favorite levels or?
I don't know that I had a favorite level per se. I mean, there were some that I enjoyed like more than others. Like the one like anytime there was like they had waves like the water.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Love
really
that.
beautiful.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought some of those visual elements I liked a lot, but there wasn't. And there was a particular level that stuck out in my mind. I mean, the box one is it was quite clever and different than some of the rest.
Yeah.
I remember also just being like when the totem sort of
I know, he went in the
breaks
water.
through the wall,
He's trying to follow him.
I know, it was so sad.
He comes back.
I know, yeah.
That's the best. I love. How did you get an emotional attachment to like a stack of bricks?
Yeah.
It's because when you.
He's like Duplo,
because
right?
that's eyes.
Like,
Well, it's not just that, but he seems to get excited when you've almost
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
He's like, whoop.
Or if you need some help and like and the help involves like moving him, he'll like a little bloop thing.
Does he?
Yeah, because at some points I would be really hung up on Ida and trying to figure out how to have her solve a problem, and then he would just be waiting over there and he would like bloop. Like, oh yeah, him, and then I'd move him, and then I would like figure out how to solve the puzzle. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, sometimes there's little audio cues for like when you're like doing the right thing, like the same way Zelda would.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you guys not hit that? Like sometimes when you move to block in the right direction, sometimes it'll just lock you into you cannot go back because you've done the right thing. But sometimes when it's a sequence of things you need to arrange, it'll give you like a sound.
I feel like it just did that every time you touched anything.
Well, they're different though. So some are just like musical notes, which
Yeah.
I should have mentioned in the main review because I thought that was actually a cool touch. But some are like you connect something and it's like part one of 3 things you have to do,
Okay.
and it'll make a nice little like doo sound, so you like know you're on the right track, and it'll do it again.
That's cool.
I was used to it from Zelda.
That's
speaking of musical notes, like on the second level, the first one where they have the little like like Lego interlocking brick style drinkable areas.
Yeah.
I like tapped on one and I heard it made like a tone, and tapped on a different one, made a different tone. I was like,
Oh.
is this like mist? Do I need to like
It's like-
play a song? And I was trying to do that. Like nothing was happening. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fail at this game. Like I'm so musically untalented that I'm never gonna get past this level.
Wow.
And then later on I realized you could slide them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it totally threw me off that they actually, they were on, different pitches or again, I'm musically highly untalented, so I have no idea what they sounded different in some way.
How'd you get to that part of Mist? How did you get past like isn't it to activate the rocket and you have to like, play
Yeah.
something on the organ?
Yeah. I had a cousin that is much more musically talented than I am that actually happened to be visiting me.
Nice.
And he got me through that
Wow.
level. Yeah.
So
I
I need
was
to launch
stuck on
this
it for a
rocket.
really long time.
Wow.
That's pretty fun. Did you ever play Rez? I'm assuming you didn't, but
Red.
it was originally a Dreamcast game, but then it went to Xbox later.
Mm.
You would probably love that game.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's the mechanic from Panzer Dragoon where you're locking onto a bunch of stuff at once. Did you ever play that one either?
No.
Okay, well, so it's actually a really cool game. It's kind of vector Tron, old school Tron kind of world.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you have a range of targets on the screen at all times. It's on the rail shooter.
Okay.
And you move the cursor, you hold down the fire button, you move the cursor over the enemies, and you can have up to 8 locked on at a time. So you
It does like all of them.
it does all of them. But the cool thing about the game is that music is sort of woven into the game design.
Yeah, that's cool.
So every time you make contact with one of the enemies, it'll play a note. So if you play 8 in a row, it'll go do-do-do-do-do-do,
Interesting.
and there's always this beat going in the background. So it's sort of by consequence of playing the game, you're creating a song as you go through the level. Super cool. It's like a cult classic game.
Nice.
But anyway, back to the other game. So what did you? I'm really curious what you guys thought about the end, because for me, like near the end, I think like the second to last level, when you go past the mirror, and you see Ida's like crown and like wings in the mirror in the reflection. At first,
was that a mirror or was that?
It was a mirror. Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
I thought it was just like somebody on the other side of the level.
I thought that too, but then when something happened, I think I saw the edge of glass. There's like a pane of glass.
Oh, okay.
So what I thought happened at first, originally as I was playing through the game, I thought it was like, well, like the crows are like dead, like zombie versions of whoever the inhabitants are.
Yeah.
And they're like, stranded in the same way like what was the movie, the warm-hearted zombie thing?
Oh, Warm Bodies.
Yes, like that, where they like used to be real people, and they were just sort of trying to.
Well, don't they say in the game that they're like they say that, don't they?
Yeah,
They do.
I thought they do early on. Like,
So they hint at it. They say something like, they used to inhabit here, but they don't. At that point, immediately, they don't call out the fact that it is the crows.
oh, I thought they did.
I got the impression they did.
Maybe I missed something, but I felt like I put that together. Maybe I just read the line literally. But anyway, so I thought what was happening was, she had made some mistake as well as these guys had, and she was like turning into a crow. And then you got to the end, you look at the cemetery, which I assume that's what that was, where you put
the graves.
Yeah,
that was like one of those like wow moments.
Yeah,
it was like really cool.
Yeah, so I thought what was happening was like you were basically descending into death, down that long staircase and descending into death, and then at the end, it seemed like it kind of flipped the story. Like you're actually, and this is where I thought it got kind of deep. At the end, where they all sort of ascend, I got the impression that you are actually not, in reality, the princess. You're actually one of these bird creatures, and the princess is sort of like your, purgatory. Like being in all the monuments and everything is your purgatory. And when you get to the end, you actually get to take your true form, which is one of the flying birds. That was my interpretation, which again goes back to they don't tell you explicitly. So I mean, did you guys have a different read on it? Did you have no read on it whatsoever?
I had very little read on it, I guess.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got a few of the lines of dialogue from like the wise old person.
Yeah. Actually
kind of gave me a vibe sort of like the plot per se of like Shadow of the Colossus. Did you ever play Shadow of the Colossus?
I played like the first level.
Okay. Have you ever? So basically like your character, what is his name? Wander? Shows up to the valley of like the Colossi, and he's got this girl, and I think she's dead.
Yeah.
And he wants to resurrect her. And there's this like
you would love this game.
There's like this god being that tells him that if he defeats all the Colossi, then it will be possible to resurrect her. But there's also like these, there's these people that are coming to like it's forbidden to be there, and so like these people are like coming to like collect him because he's not supposed to be there. And so it's like sort of this thing where it's like,
what kind of game is this?
It's a third person.
It's a fighting game, basically. Not a fighting game like Street Fighter.
There's a fighting mechanic, but you're not. It's not like it's more artsy than that.
It's very artsy, but at the end of the day, playing the game involves defeating 16 like massive creatures.
Yeah. I think a fighting game is
in
like
combat.
Like Street Fighter is like a fighting game.
Yeah, sorry. It's I guess it'd be hard to describe what it is then.
Action adventure.
Yeah, that doesn't really do it justice though. It's like just basically like imagine like the boss battle from like a normal game and just take out everything else and just have 16 boss battles.
That's right.
Like it's just
Wait, and I would love this game.
Well, so you would like the aesthetic.
It's very painterly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like Eco. Have you heard of Eco or like Eco? I think you'd like Eco actually way more than
maybe. I don't know. I played it recently and was underwhelmed, but I think that's because
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but I think it's a combination of my expectations are a little too high, and it's at this point kind of an old game, and it's like not as approachable as you might expect.
But it was this like impressionistic painterly effect. Before that was like a thing to do.
Yeah, totally. So I kind of got the impression that maybe like it was the same sort of thing where it's like Ida's not supposed to be in the valley, and she's here like, and there's like the like geometry that she like takes out of her hat and like puts on the pedestals. And like, what's that for? I'm like, well, maybe she stole all these things and now she's putting them back to atone for something, and like. Maybe the graves, like maybe those people are dead because of something she did, and she's like trying to like make up for her actions by returning all these things, But then at the end, when she just like turns into a bird and flies away, I'm like, what the hell was that?
But I think that's the fun. I mean, to me, that's the same sort of reaction that I get from like listening to songs or something. It's like they're not telling you exactly what's happening in the story. It's part of the fun of listening to songs.
Yeah, it's like filling in your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that like that's fun when, or it's more fun when, I guess it's like easier to fill in the gaps, and you can sort of like like
Where you have enough clues to fill in the gaps.
yeah, it feels like you're sort of like connecting the dots, and then a picture emerges. But when the dots are just sort of like randomly scattered, and you're not sure what order to put
it's
them
like
in.
Donnie Darko. It's like, oh, there's a lot of clues here, but I can sort of put together, part of the answer, but I don't really believe that there is a full answer, there.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
But I'm
versus like, I don't know, Sixth Sense or something where you're like, okay, you can clearly like, I mean, that's a little too literal, but like, there's sometimes there's enough clues that like you can put the answer together.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just deliberately not enough clues.
Right.
So you're like, there's no way you can ever truly know what it was, and I find that unsatisfying. I want to be able to figure out the answer to the mystery.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to spell it out for me, but I want to have all the clues there,
Yeah.
and I want there to actually be a coherent answer that I can find, as opposed to like when stories have no coherent answer, but they just want to like suggest suggest something, and you figure it out yourself. We couldn't make it work, but here you take these clues and find some meaning yourself in them.
Well, that's not necessarily the same thing. Like I get the feeling that there is a specific answer, but they didn't want to spell it out. And accepting the fact that not everybody's going to come to the same conclusion.
Sure.
I mean, that.
No, I'm saying
one's lazy.
I'm not saying that like this falls on one kind or the other. I'm just saying in general, like I think there's these two different like styles that that storytellers often take to these kind of things, and I find the one in which there is no truth, like even the storytellers don't know the answer. I find that very unsatisfying.
No.
Because then I can never get to the right answer because there is no right answer.
Right. I mean, I think in principle, like having like an ambiguous story or even like an ambiguous ending can be cool and well done. It kind of like is important for, I know this sounds weird, the thing that is ambiguous to be obvious. You know what I mean? Like that the question isn't answered, but at least you knew what the question was, basically.
I thought that was the end. Like so for me, the final thing that happens when the birds all fly up,
right?
Like that to me was where the focus was, and it was intentionally not telling you exactly what that meant.
Okay.
So in other words, actually I hadn't even thought about like offering the geometry back to the monuments.
Right.
I hadn't made that connection until you'd said that. So that to me is the question that is presented but maybe not answered fully is the human form that she's in and the sort of the crow form and all the other guys in, is that the real form and they sort of like die or whatever and like go on to the next life? Or was that the real form and this other form was sort of temporary? Kind of the same way in Journey where like minor spoiler, but at the end, you sort of go to this other plane of existence.
Yeah.
That left me with the same feeling, which is that the end is not fully explained in Journey. You die, and then some other stuff happens, and you could interpret it as basically being resurrected, or you could interpret it as still being alive. So
yeah. No, I mean, and the ending of Journey, I think, really worked for me, but for this one, it feels a little too weird, I guess, to like make sense to me. Where it's just,
well, they are British. Let's be fair.
I guess I don't know. I mean, overall, I think the game was a lot of fun. It's just the plot was like really hard for me to follow. And, like I don't mind like sketching in the details, but it just feels like the few details we did get didn't form something that I was able to string together into something that resembles.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I could see notching it up one more little bit as far as like maybe a minimum just finding out who the ghost is would be a good start. Sure. But the ending, I personally like the very ending a lot. Wow. So
also possible that it just, I don't know, maybe they just were just going for whatever seemed cool and it doesn't necessarily didn't need to have a beginning, middle, and end in that way. I don't know. I guess that's possible too, but
cool.
All right. Actually, one thing I did like was how like Ida's going through this crazy world, and sometimes like you're like rotating her around and stuff, and these whole monuments are reconfiguring and stuff, and like she's completely unfazed by all this. Just
you'll like move the thing and she'll like be, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, who's moving them?
Yeah,
like, I know. Perspective. Why are these things even moving?
Well, actually, one of my favorite really small moments is when you get dumped into one of the levels and it's just the crow. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, like
oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And then later on, like Ida was underneath this.
Finally, how long have I been under there? Actually, the crows. I think it actually would have been a lot less fun without the crows. I think the crows were a great decision to add.
Yeah, I really
because they're never actually like aggressive. They're just sort of annoying. Like they're kind of like the seagulls from Finding Nemo.
Yeah,
that same sort of like mine. That whole thing.
Yeah.
They don't really do anything to you. They just squawk at you.
Yeah, but you get to like throw them into like, impossible situations that they can't get out of.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They're like lemmings. You know?
They're like lemmings. Exactly.
You know,
Totally.
and I love in all the same little tricks. You know, you have to do for like when playing lemmings. You end up doing in this game. You wait for them to leave, and then quick wait for them to like cross onto something on a bridge, and then quickly rotate the bridge around and get them off again. And
You know what's interesting is you played the first Portal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll play both.
Yeah. So I haven't played Portal 2, but the interesting thing is that when the first
Yo, you're missing out. You're missing out just for the Cave Johnson voiceovers.
I'm sorry. Have you seen Garden State?
I have not.
We can start our list of shame.
All right.
But so the interesting thing is when Portal 1 came out and it sort of people played through it relatively. I mean, it's the same, roughly the same length, maybe a little bit longer, but it's the same kind of journey. Like everyone was like, "Hey, this is great. I wanted a longer form game," you know. And I could see when Portal 2 came out, everyone's like, "Oh my god, are they going to take the same mechanic and like spread it out into a much more fleshed out thing?" I kind of get that feeling here, where it's like, I think this is the perfect contained size for the game, but you can also see how this, the concept could be stretched out into something much more elaborate. And I think that actually is really exciting.
That would actually be really cool.
For me, I think I would want a lot more story.
Absolutely,
Because I felt like this was almost felt too long to me, given my story.
Really?
Yeah, like
it's way too short.
I played for a little while, and then I was like another level, and I would stop and I come back a little bit, and there was just enough to kind of like keep me going, like I would be delighted by a certain puzzle or there'd be a little more story, but I just felt like, I don't know, like these kind of puzzle type games don't really hold my interest usually all that well, and so this held it more than most, but yeah, it felt like too long for me. Given that there was nothing else. I mean, the story was just so thin on the way through.
That's so interesting, because the way I think we're so different in that way, because like I would actually be fine. I mean, I think it's better with it, but I'd be absolutely fine playing the game with zero story. In other words, if it was just like Tetris with a person in it, and you just get to look at the art. But for you, it sounds like that would be not fun at all.
I mean, it would still be. The art was still beautiful, and the puzzles were still entertaining. But it's like, it was fine for an hour, and then the art style doesn't change dramatically, so it's like, yeah, I mean,
well, the color palette changes.
But you're saying that like the puzzles by themselves weren't enough, to last.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't just sit and do the whole thing all the way through. For example, like I could last half an hour, and then I got kind of tired of it. And if then versus like Connect You Route Zero, where like the story keeps progressing, and like what's gonna happen next, and I really got, I really just kind of barreled through that.
Yeah.
Maybe you wouldn't like Eco.
Hey, podcast listeners.
Today we're going to review Monument Valley, the new game by ustwo Games.
Save your opinion till later.